And we are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the stream. I hope you're all doing well, that you're having a nice beginning of the week. Happy Women's Day to the women among you. And I'm very happy to have you all, men and women, back here for a new interview. This time, not with a member of the European Parliament, a journalist, or anything. We're going to go for something lighter tonight, given the context. That may be some welcome distraction. So tonight, we're gonna welcome the people behind the Schuman Show. What is the Schuman Show? It's a comedy show about the EU and the Eurobubble, let's say, to simplify. So think about people who are like DG Meme or myself, but being actually funny people and doing that on stage. So you see, it's even better than myself and DG Meme. So the show itself is being performed by a cast of people who are current or former EU professionals, so they actually know what they are making fun of. I went to their show a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and it was great. I can definitely recommend if you are around in Brussels. Do check them out, but we're going to discuss all that in a few minutes. So to represent them tonight, I will have the co-founders of the show with us. Kelly Agathos and Lisa Wittmann. Kelly used to work in EU institution, and Lisa is EU affairs journalist. So again, people who know what they're making fun about. But before we start our conversation, as usual, I remind the house rules for anyone who would be new with us tonight. So our guests will stay with us for about an hour. After that, they will go enjoy their evening, and you may be stuck with me for a bit more. Not too long, because I don't expect to have too much to comment. It's not when we're talking politics and interviewing an MEP. And as usual, I prepared my questions, but you can react and suggest your own questions via the chat, whether on Twitch or on Twitter. On Twitch or on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, well, click the link and you can join the Twitch or YouTube chat to ask your questions, and I will pick among them. As usual, don't forget to stay nice, stay civil, and don't spam. And well, on this note, I suggest that we dive into it. Hi Kelly, hi Lisa. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. So you and me doing the introduction. You're the co-founder of the Schuman Show. I went to see you a couple of weeks ago. It was great. Thanks again for that. So I don't know if I forgot anything in my introduction. So anything you might want to add before we jump in?
I think you got it pretty right. Like, as you said, Lisa's a journalist. I'm an improviser and performer in general. And yeah, we both founded the Schuman Show about this time last year, wasn't it?
Deep in lockdown.
Yes. This was a dream we had during lockdown that became a reality in September.
Okay, so it's actually quite recent. I was going to ask, how did you came up with the idea itself of the Schuman Show?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, of course, we already have these American examples, right? Mm-hmm. We know also from the Netherlands, you have like Zondag with Lubach, which is also a TV show where sometimes very abstract and difficult subjects get translated with comedy for like the broader audience. And as I'm a journalist, and I found sometimes EU topics difficult to translate to the broader audience. She has been living or working in the EU bubble and working with a lot of people from the EU bubble and looking for ways to entertain them and the rest of Europe. I think just these thoughts connected.
Yeah, we met each other right before the second lockdown. So August 2020 is when we first met through a mutual friend. And that mutual friend also wanted to try and make journalism accessible and fun. And when we actually started talking a little more, we became friends outside of that initial project. The thing we kept on coming back to was what a shame it is that Europe doesn't have its own version of Saturday Night Live, of the late shows, of the daily shows, the John Olivers, and being avid consumers of both, and wanting to communicate both in our own ways. She as a journalist, me through my stage performance, wanting to communicate how Europe works. Comedy seemed a very natural way to do so. I guess the thing that catapulted this into a real project was when I did something called the Brexit rap. It was a YouTube
Yes.
rap about
Yeah.
Brexit,
I do remember that.
where I played a very pissed off Europe as a wife, bitching about the UK, her ex-husband, and basically being like, and stay out. Basically that being the lesson, because at the time I was learning how to freestyle rap, and I noticed that I was venting all my frustration during the times when I was practicing my rhymes on the fact that in the news at that time, Brexit was a big topic. Lisa was a huge supporter of that, and she kept on saying, we've got to do this comedy project, we've got to do this comedy project. And I told her, because I've done a lot of projects in the past, that there's no way I'm doing something like that alone. And so I told her, okay, if you also do it with me, we will do it.
So now we're fucked together.
Are we allowed to say that on Twitter?
Yeah, it's not the regular media. You can say whatever you want. It's even better. I mean, people.
And then, but that was only the beginning. We have some wonderful collaborators. I was interviewed on a podcast with Politico, where I met Paul Dallison, who writes the declassified column for Politico, and that is how that introduction was made. So then Lisa and I brought him into the project. Tristan Barber, who is a stand-up comedian who I had met, who I know independently, was another person we were talking about during the same period, and he's the one who recommended me also for that podcast. So in the beginning, it was us four talking a little more concretely. This is about this time last year, March 2021, about what a project like this was called. We didn't even have the name yet. We had a bunch of ideas like EU Tonight Live and the briefing report, and some were too silly, some were too serious. But then through a brainstorm, we came up with, I don't even remember whose idea it was, but we all settled on the Schuman Show as a name because it rhymes with Truman Show. It, of course, Schuman alludes to Place Schuman and Robert Schuman, but it also was important to us that, you know, it's something that is accessible to a non-EU crowd as well, because sometimes people hear European Union and they just push the snooze button.
Yeah.
So we wanted to be able to get our sketches out to a wider audience, and for them to actually discover us and be interested, and therefore also get people's interest outside of the bubble. Because right now with our monthly show in Brussels, we're very much preaching to the converted in a sense. People that enjoy DG Meme, enjoy Bear the Monster, enjoy Mepassistant, and want more of that type of comedy. But our overarching goal is that we are able to perform, produce, and do shows that reach Europe in general, and we've started that through our YouTube clips that are based on some of the most popular sketches we do in our monthly shows. But the dream is that we get this to be a live televised or live stream show.
Okay, interesting. But that being said, I think you struck the right note, because actually, like I mentioned, I went to your show a couple of weeks ago, and I went with someone who actually is not from the bubble. So I was actually curious to see our reaction, and she told me that actually she understood, not all the details when we're talking about the conference on the future of Europe. Of course, sometimes some details were way over her head, but otherwise, that the principle of the joke, they work, it's funny. So you succeeded in that front. So congrats to you.
Thank you. That's great to hear, and I think that our team will be happy to hear that. And I want to shout out to Louise Day and Barry Makion, because they're also part of the team, and I didn't mention them before. They came on board around May, and
it went all very quickly from there.
And since then it's been a very solid team, and I think they'd be very happy to hear that this is striking the right chord outside of the bubble as well.
And so you came up with the idea during the second lockdown. You brainstorm until you said last probably about this time last year. How long did it take between then to get to your first show?
So the first thing we wanted to do is to make a pilot show. So just with a very small audience of familiar people to hear feedback, to see what works, what didn't work. just to try it out before we would be all in the open and vulnerable, right? So we did a pilot show in June.
The end of June, and that's actually, we brought in Barry Makian, who's one of our writers, on board to play Angela Merkel, because he does a very good impression of her. And we also brought Louise Day, who Tristan and I knew from a sketch writing course, because she was, we figured she was a brilliant writer, and then we discovered she's also a brilliant performer. So the core team actually was the one that did the pilot, and we got a couple more actors involved, and Craig Winiker, who still writes for us, another brilliant writer, and that team pretty much basically the pilot audience was all our friends. We all, everyone in the writer performer
but
team.
It was a mixed group. It was not only Brussels Bubble, it was also people from outside Bubbles to see how jokes would land.
Exactly. We asked that everyone bring, I think, something like 4 guests, and we asked that if we could, to have bubble and non-bubble people, so that we can then figure out if what we're doing makes sense.
And so, what was the feedback of the pilot show? Did you change a lot of things, or was it already on point and you stayed the course?
Well, it was my first time. I'm the host of the show, so I do the opening monologue, and then in between sketches, I talk to the audience, also to give everyone the time to change clothes and change scenes. So I'm kind of a placeholder as well as a host. And for me, that was the first time I had done an opening monologue of that type. I'm an improviser by nature, not a stand-up. So for me, that was very much an eye-opener because it was the first time I had been in that role, and it was a role that I was and I am very proud and happy to play. I got some great feedback from not only the team, but also our guests, including some stand-ups that we had invited. So it made a huge difference, even just the rehearsal before the pilot.
I remember at first you wanted to try to remember it all by heart, or we were like, would you read it from
from a teleprompter?
From a teleprompter. So those, and then in the end, it was just learning a few cues and
some keywords. There's a collaborator of mine from Improbubble, which is my improv school, with whom I have another show called House of Europe, which is also all about the bubble. Small plug there. One of my actors is Geron de Wolf, who is a very well-known improviser, stand-up comedian, and actor from Antwerp, and he was the one who told me, don't try and learn it out by heart. Know where you want to land, know what the joke is, and trust that the rest will come to you. And thankfully, he's told me that, because since then, a monthly show is that you can't pre-write the monologue. I mean, look at the one that you saw, the one you saw last week. We had to deal with the invasion of Ukraine in a tactful way. And that meant that every joke we had made for the monologue had to go out the window.
I see. Yeah, no, definitely. And so how many? So now it's a monthly show. Usually the last Thursday of each month, in principle.
In principle, it's more subject to theater availability these days. Because as we discovered, with having something that grows very fast, when our first open show to the audience was in September
in a basement,
like in a bar basement, 50 people.
Wow.
And that sold out super fast. So then we realized we've got to get a bigger boat. So we went to a 250-seater venue in October that sold out in 3 days.
Wow.
Nice. So then we got a bigger venue, but because of lockdown, because of the new lockdown, we could only have 200 people in our December show, and that sold out in a few hours. So we were then frantically, like, me and Lisa have spent the better part of the last 6 months researching theaters, writing to theater owners, checking venues that are not theaters but maybe could work for the show. And so the dream was that it would be every last Thursday of the month, and it will be. Like in May and June, we are actually doing it on the last Thursday of the month. But last month it was on the Sunday, because that was the only Sunday in February that theater is free. And this month is on the 24th of March, which is a Thursday, but it's the third Thursday of the month.
Well, let's not be picky. It's a Thursday. I'll take that as a win. And so overall, how many shows are you in? Is what, the fourth, fifth show?
We've done 4.
Yeah, we've done 4 without the pilot.
Yeah, without the pilot, we've
Okay,
done 4, and then the March one will be the 5th one.
Okay, and then so you said that you sold out already on your preview show. So how much do you estimate your following? Let's say, because I understood that from the show I attended that there are people who keep coming back every month. So what is your following?
Had quite a lot new people this time.
It was half and half this time. Yeah.
But we do have a bigger venue now. Already last time we had more capacity, and this time because of the COVID measures being released, we have even more capacities. So we'll see if we break those numbers again.
It was last show we got up to 370 people for February, and if I take the shouts that I asked for people, I think it was 50-50 who were recurring customers and who were new. We have a mailing list of about 500 and something. So I don't know if that's a following, but that's what we have. Our Twitter page has about 1,000 followers at the moment. So. Statistically, this is what we know so far, but we do have a lot of repeat. We do have people that have come to everyone, or at least 2 or 3.
And so you in the show you make fun of the EU and the Euro bubble. Did you ever hear some feedback from the institution, like people in the institution telling you, "Oh well, I know your show. You've been making this sketch about us," or something, or not?
We not in that, like we've had mostly it's funny because it's true.
So that's good. That's good.
Mostly they've been appreciative of it. We haven't had any oh, that's not right. I mean, even the Transparency Register, someone who works there told us that made her day. So so far I think small things, but nothing where they've been like, how dare you portray me like that? It's I think there was one Maltese audience member who did not enjoy that in the microstate sketch we last did. They were
targeted.
Yeah, they felt targeted, but and they did tell us, like she did write us an email telling us that was like, she felt like we were picking on Malta, but that was never our intention. And our intention was that the microstates have an inferiority complex with regard to Malta. But other than that, institutions, no. I don't think
that is also not our aim. It's not our aim to punish institutions, or it's just to place a mirror and to make a little fun of them, but not to put them down.
I'm asking because I know that, for instance, DG Meme, when they first started, the commission tried to shut him down. Actually,
really?
Yeah, they tried to shut him down, they shut his page down, and he resisted. And in the end, now they're all very fans of what he does at DG Meme. So that's why I was asking about the reaction.
No, I mean, it's going to happen. Like one day, we know it. Like we know that one day someone is going to get very offended, and
yeah, but I don't see Ursula von der Leyen shutting us down yet.
I mean, that would be pretty much a Streisand effect, having the president of the commission talking about your show. Probably the best advertisement you could hope for.
Well, we have had MEPs come. We have had chefs de cabinet come. We know that there are people even high up in the institutions that have come to see the show. So it has definitely struck a chord. And I think that the fact that they are supporting it means something. It means that there is a need for this. There's a need, first of all, there's a need for us not to take ourselves too seriously and to laugh at ourselves. Lisa mentioned earlier that I have before becoming a full-time performer, I worked in the institutions. I've been in the European Parliament. I've been in the European Commission. I've worked for permanent representation. So I have witnessed both the good and the bad firsthand, and so have a lot of our team. A lot of our team have worked with or for institutions. So we also are not. I don't think we're tone deaf. I think that what we say is fair. Like one thing we love to make fun of a lot through our spokesperson Marguerite Funky Boogaloo Schmeith, who's our generic spokesperson character that Paul plays, is he always has an announcement in his midday about how the European Commission is extremely concerned about something. And that is, I mean, there's even a channel like
Yeah,
EU
there's a Twitter
Concerned.
channel called Is the
Yeah.
EU Concerned? Yeah.
Is the EU concerned? And that just speaks to the fact that, yeah, can we maybe say something other than that, because it starts to feel meaningless, and that is a real critique. We actually, it is a joke, but a lot of our jokes are also a critique, and we hope people, we hope it makes people think a little bit as well.
Well,
Yeah, and also, just to add something, because I think when I arrived in Brussels a little 4 years ago, I was quite surprised that there are so little books or TV shows or comedy or about the EU. Well, it really is a great topic for for a House of Cards kind of series, for comedy, but also even because I try to buy some books that really told the story from inside, maybe with a little wink, but even those aren't.
There aren't many.
No, so it's really, from a cultural perspective, I think there is like bare ground regarding the EU.
And so what is the process for you to prepare a show? I mean, choosing the themes, the different sketches, what's your process? How long does it take?
Well, this particular time will be the fastest turnaround we have, because it's 3 weeks between the two shows. But what usually happens is we have a writer's room, either a virtual one or an in-person one, in which we pitch sketches to each other, some of which are drafts, some of which are just beat sheets. What is the topic? What do we want to come across? And then we work through it. It's a very collaborative process, I have to say. Like I manage it and I chair the writer's room, but everyone has a say, we has an opinion, and a lot of the time, even when something has been written by one individual, others edit it either in the writer's room or on virtually on Google Docs afterwards. So we do that back and forth for the first couple of weeks. Then we start deciding what stays in, what is shelved for next month, or what we can't use. And then the final week is the one in which we've just solidified, okay, so these are going to be our sketches. And then we cast externally or internally. We have Rojana Radu and Maya Salmansour, who are and Jesse Schmale, who are 3 of our usual actors. But sometimes we do more casting if we need to cast some more characters. And the final week is the busiest, craziest week, because up until that point, we're finalizing, we're writing, and then we've got something like 5 days in which we do the first read through, maybe one rehearsal in the middle if we have time, the dress rehearsal, and then the day of we do the tech rehearsal and the show.
Okay, well, yeah, so pretty busy indeed. And when you make the selection of on sketches and the ideas, are there things that you choose not to make fun of, or is everything fair game?
We have discussions.
We have discussions, yeah. Sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't agree. Most of the time we agree, or we discuss it and we can come to pretty much the same conclusion. There have been very few instances in which we haven't agreed and then I'm the one who makes the final decision. But the good thing about this team is that everyone sees the big picture. Everyone knows that we all want what's best for the show. So there aren't bruised egos. There is not like a lot of drama. We just get on with it. We make the decision whether we all agree or we don't all agree, and then we work towards it. For example, a good example of that is, I think, the last show, because some of us wanted to do a normal monologue and some of us did not because of the situation. By the end of that week, even though we had tried a lot of different things and written a lot of different things, we all agreed that the open letter to Vladimir Putin was the way to go.
Okay, and when you make jokes, are they like a reflection of your own opinions on the topic, or do you just see, okay, there's an opportunity for a joke, I will take it even if I don't agree with the underlining text of the joke?
I think mostly it's our point of view.
Yeah, sometimes we had, I think, discussions, or maybe an actor saying, I don't think this is my point of view. Mm-hmm. But in general, we just tend to talk about topics until the moment that we agree on what is the angle that we all agree on. Mm-hmm. You know, far too often it's like, do we really blame Brussels for this, or is it more the member states that we should be pointing at? These are the kinds of discussions that we are having, because we don't want to, we don't always want to blame Brussels. We don't always want to point the finger at MEPs. We really want to be fair. We want to joke about them. But
even the lobbyists, and we've been really mean. We've been really mean to lobbyists. But sometimes we have discussions in the group, and sometimes the conversation goes into but if you objectively look at what the lobbies are saying about that, they're not wrong. We basically look at what is in the news, what policies are the ones being proposed, and we do kind of place ourselves as individuals on these, and then we think about what is it that we want, what is the message that we want, what is the point of view of the sketch.
I think that's also because we have really a mixed group. So we have people who really worked in institutions, people who still work at the lobby, journalists. So it's really a mix. So we do have a lot of points of view.
Yeah, former consultants, former commission officials. So then I guess to answer your question, there is a point of view. And even if it's one that not all of us agree on, it's one we can get behind. We have not asked anyone to say something that they morally object to, for example. And we have had, like, there was a line in the song that we did in the last show, which someone was uncomfortable with, and we modified it. So we need to be able, especially if people are then going to judge as criticize what we put out there, we need to be able to defend what we did and why. So we kind of have to have an opinion. It's different though. It's not like having an opinion and preaching though is two different things.
That's really something very important, because we don't want to be the ones like, oh, we know how the EU should act in this situation. Like, who are we to tell the audience or whoever to how to act? But we just want to point out some certain, like, maybe
inconsistencies,
absurdity. I see what you mean.
Or something that's a little bit maybe hypocritical, those kind of things.
You already mentioned that in the context of your last show, you received feedback from someone from Malta for the because of the microstate sketch. Do you often receive positive or negative feedback after shows, or was it something exceptional that someone was writing to you to say, oh well, here's what I thought about your sketch?
We receive overwhelmingly positive feedback through all the channels. We get DMs about it in the social media. We get a lot of emails. We also, as people, like after the show, people come up to us, and then in our social circles, people talk about it. So the overwhelming feedback is very positive, and we're very grateful, because we thought there was a niche for that, and we were right.
You were.
And also, we are still like inventing the show as it goes, right?
Yeah.
And for us, it's still, it has only been 4 shows, so every show still feels like a tryout, and we have to invent so many wheels. So it's very good to have.
Most of the constructive, let's say, feedback that we got recently was about the sound quality of our show, which is something we're still figuring out. It's the first time we've worked in such a big theater. The sound booth is not where it should be, because it's behind a curtain, and it's not the same sound that is coming out there is not the sound that the people in the balcony hear, and we have now got a workaround for that, because every time we grow and we adapt, we figure something else to do, and we have a brilliant tech team who believes in the show and who's ready to find solutions with us. But those are more like, we're more getting that kind of feedback, like logistical feedback, rather than content feedback. On the content, luckily, it seems like we're currently, like, touch wood, it's going well.
Okay, well done. That's good to hear. And I saw, and you mentioned that during the last show as well, you have volunteers who come to help you as well. So you for the logistical aspects, or how does it work? You just make a shout out. Who wants to help us? Come that day, that night, and remove the chair and so.
If there's anybody listening who wants to help for the next show, yes, please contact us. Yes, so we are still like a startup. Like, everybody does this besides their full-time job.
literally everybody on our team has another job.
Yeah, or a life.
Or no, we did have a life, Lisa.
Yeah. So we are just really trying to make this work, and as we said, we are inventing the wheel as we go, trying to get things going, and we really need the help of volunteers to help out to make sure all the ends are met.
Yeah, we have. I mean, the main things that volunteers help with are if we need a bar help, ticket checking. Thankfully now, COVID safe certificates. It seems we won't need that. So. Fewer volunteers, I think, for next time, and behind the scenes, helping us move the props backstage. This was a slow start. We got a lot of people emailing us saying, "I want to be in the show. I want to like get on stage. I want to act." And we have very few people
who wants to move stuff.
To do, the hard work. Like,
I don't understand those people want to be on stage, but behind stage is so much more fun. I can assure you.
So it took a little while to get a core group, but now more and more people, I think they also they see what we're trying to do and they appreciate what we're trying to do. I think also we're consistent. We're always like, please help us.
It comes with benefits. Yeah. Free tickets, free drinks, we do what we can.
Yeah. We do. We don't take people's time for granted. But we also can't split ourselves into a million pieces. So we do need to have, since we're all grassroots. I mean, you're looking at the treasurer and the
CEO and the CEO
and the CFO. I'm technically like the host and the creative director, but I also write emails and coordinate things, and then go all the way to the middle of nowhere in the Belgian countryside to pick up microphones. So
with your mom's car.
With my mom's car. Yeah. And then we all like, it's getting better because we are like, as we grow, we are adding stage managers and more technicians and people to help us more, but there is quite a lot to do, and we are very ambitious. We don't want to stop being ambitious with where we go with this, but in order to make it happen, we do need volunteers at the moment.
And you mentioned that all of you are having a job on the side. Well, the Schuman Show is your side job. I don't know how you prefer to present it. What is the reaction of your colleagues when, I mean, they know that you're in the Schuman Show, so how does it work? Was it weird at the beginning, or did they all embrace the fact that you were doing this?
I think it's most interesting for the other writers who like work in the lobby, etc. But I think it has been embraced overall, right?
Oh yes, I mean, you and I are both. We work for ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an improv school called Impro Bubble, and my students regularly come to see the show. So I see the fact that Anyway, a lot of my students are in EU affairs, so it's naturally when they find out about it, they want to come. I think Paul, his Politico has been super supportive of Paul.
Good fan club there.
Yeah, very grateful for that too, because it's a good multiplier in terms of getting the word out as well. So a lot of journalists came to see the first couple of shows, and we know from Paul that they are.
And it was also last time one of the writers said he went to work the next day, and somebody had to write a report that somebody that also came to the show and had to write down something about holistic approch. If you went to the last show, so that person couldn't stop laughing after.
Yeah. And there have been like side gigs based on, I know that a couple of our writer performers have got side gigs based on things they've done in the Schuman Show by their actual work. So yeah, I would say that on the whole, both colleagues and the social circle are very supportive.
So now let's go back to making humor about Europe. Like you mentioned, Europe, the European Union, whenever you mention that, usually people put on the snooze button. It seems like it's far away, it's big, it's complicated. So how do you break it down? Like, how do you make it relatable?
Well, in the end, actually, the EU seems very difficult. It's delivered very abstract and complex. But in the end, it's all about winners and losers, right? It's not, if you really break a topic down, it's about somebody trying to get something, somebody winning something over it, somebody playing games and narratives. So if you just break the topics down to what they are in essence, then I think there is both the joke and the truth.
There's also a lot about personalities. I mean, if you look at Sofagate and all of the everything that's been said about the relationship between Charles Michel and von der Leyen, that is relatable, because there are a lot of politicians who don't like each other. There are a lot of national and international politicians which have difficulty working together, and therefore it's not such an uncommon thing to notice or to make fun of.
It's a human thing.
It's a human thing, and it's about finding that. And even like we make a lot of bureaucratic jokes, institutional jokes, but that is, I mean, the UN has the same problems. Even the United States Congress has similar problems, and no one. I mean, I did not know what the filibuster was when I first watched The West Wing, but the way it was portrayed on The West Wing didn't completely explain it to me, but got me interested. And so that is also another thing. We may not be 100% understandable to everyone, but if we intrigue them at least, and we make it funny enough for them to stay with us, I think that
we already had people Googling who Schuman was.
Yeah, and cometology.
Wow, that's...
Yeah. So it's about finding out. It's so much about communication. It's about and again, that is where I think not just what we do, but what our other writers do, because we have we have a journalist. Sorry, it's not a former journalist. We have a former consultant and communication specialist. We have a stand-up comedian. I think that one of the things that all these people have in common, the lobbyists, is that we need to communicate what we do. We need to, that is, and good comedy tells a story and finds the funny in the truth, because the truth is inherently funny. So what we're trying to do is find the funny in what exists. We're not trying to invent so much as we're trying to pinpoint that is actually objectively funny.
And you mentioned you got people to Google who was Schuman, what is comitology. Ultimately, do you see humor about the EU as a gateway to get people interested in the EU and get them to learn and stuff about it?
Absolutely. That is, I think, our raison d'etre, very much. That is the thing that we were passionately discussing during the lockdown.
It's both the moonshot and the reason that we are here.
Yeah.
So I know it's so difficult to really get an EU narrative, to get people interested in the EU. So many initiatives have failed. Also, from a journalism point of view, I know many pan-European initiatives have failed so far. So I don't know if we're reaching for the stars, but it is really something worth trying, because if we are not getting the audience interested in the EU, which is just part of their democracy, right? And they're part of the policy that also has an influence on their lives, then we can as well quit. It should be that people are engaged, and this is just our way of trying to engage them.
Yeah, again, I mean, I think humor, it makes something interesting, familiar, and if you're laughing, you're learning faster and more easily. But it's also kind of cathartic in a way. I was consuming a lot of US late night comedy, especially during the Trump years, more than I did before, because the one way I could kind of stomach the Trump presidency was by hearing about some of the stuff with a dose of humor. I'm born in America. I have an American passport, so I do feel close to that country, even though very much I feel like my identity is European. I'm Greek. More than that, because of growing up there for the beginning of my life, I do look at what's happening across the pond, and it does depress me also, because they're, a world power. So for me, having that comedic outlet was also a little bit cathartic. And I do think it's something that we need for that reason, but also because we see what happens in European elections. We see the low turnout in votes. We saw Brexit, and Brexit happened, in my opinion, because not enough people knew what was happening in the EU. I was working in the British permanent representation right before Brexit, and I remember having lived in the UK as well and having studied there, I remember how shocked I was to go to a country which had so much Euroscepticism, even in a university like Cambridge. To me, coming from admittedly a very Eurocentric place like Brussels, it just felt like night and day. But then when I would come back as someone who had worked in European affairs, and I would talk to them about, how much power the UK had in the council and how basically the end of roaming was spearheaded by that country, they had no idea. And when you tell them that they are one of the biggest players, and due to qualified majority, they have a huge say on the laws on the inside, they have no idea. And that is because there is no one except the tabloid newspapers reporting really consistently about Brussels. Whereas when, and also I think there's a part of blame Brussels that happens in every country when something unpopular happens. It's so easy to say, oh, well, our hands were tied. And as you've written a book about the black box that is the European Council, there's no readouts. And
yeah, actually it's about the Netherlands and how the Dutch government also has like two faces, one that they show to the audience and one and their agenda that they really pursue in Brussels, which I think majority of parliament.
Yeah, that's a classic, I think.
Yeah, so that's really, and that's where a lot of mistakes come from, and people, and you can't blame them if they
don't know,
only hear the one narrative and never hear the other side of the story.
And we don't have a pop culture. We have national pop culture. We have like Les Guignols de l'Info. I mean, I don't know what the equivalent is now because that's a bit dated, but you have those kind of national shows. In the UK, it's Mock the Week and Have I Got News for You. In Greece, it's something called Radio Arvila. In the US, it's the late night talk shows and Saturday Night Live. But like, there is nothing equivalent on a European stage. And since, the laws that happen in Brussels affect all of us, and especially now, I mean, not to bring the mood down, but looking at what's happening in Ukraine, and looking at the situation, I mean, existentially, I think we need to, know what Europe does and safeguard what Europe does in a way.
And how do you explain the fact that, I mean, in your opinion, the fact that at EU level we don't have a late night show, this kind of comedy show that we can see on TV, and that you're trying to fill that void? Is it because there is no interest? Is it because the EU professionals are too scared to put themselves in a weird spot because professionally they're bound to the thing they would be criticizing, making fun of? What's your take on that?
I think it just because if you are in the Brussels bubble, you're in the Brussels bubble, right? So you are kind of you are inside, you hear everything, and you forget about the world outside. So I think it just didn't cross enough people's minds first. I think also because if you're in the bubble, then you're like, okay, I'm just doing my thing, and this is how Europe works. So why should I be? There was just no necessity there. I think also the people outside of the bubble, they just wouldn't think of the EU as to make fun of because it's just too far away from them. And people are just busy with their national affairs, and they don't really think of the EU to portray them. So yeah, it was just looked over.
I think that there have been attempts. Like, we need to be fair. First of all, there is a very successful French TV series called Parlement, which unfortunately is not yet being streamed on something like Netflix. I think if that happened, I think that the interest would blow up. But it has been successful. It's now in its third season has just been commissioned, and one of the screenwriters. Maxime Caligaro lives and works still in Brussels. So this is, I think, our best example of someone breaking through out of Brussels into into a wider medium. There is the book by Robert Menas, The Capital.
Yeah.
There is also an element of what you said. I mean, we have a common friend who has written a book that because he works in the European Commission, you need to submit this for approval and all of that. And the feedback he's received has made it clear that there would be backlash, or that it might not be such a wise move. And it's not that they've said don't publish it, but he believes that this might hurt his career. So he's keeping it on the side for now.
I also think we are just lucky, or because the people you drew together with all those, the team, with these mix of people that you, because of your theater background, could gather. I think that really is a unique thing. I was really amazed of how quickly we had a team that really has such good writers and performers, and that they all also do this besides their job. It's really.
I think it's a matter of time. If it wasn't going to be us, it was going to be someone else. Lars von Trier, interestingly enough, had a kind of whodunit mystery that was going to take place in Brussels that was going to come out sometime in 2008, 2009. But due to the crisis, that project got shelved.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So we are not by any means the first to have tried to do something. And then there's the mini web series, the Euro Bubble, that my friend Yasin Kuhin, that's how I first saw that this is a place that is ripe for comedy, through being involved in that project with him. And that went very, very well. And everyone was watching it back in 2012, 2013. So I think that there have been a lot of attempts. There probably are others we are not aware of. I really hope that more things get on air, and why has it not happened until now might just be luck. Might just be right place at the right time, the right people meeting together. But I hope, and I think we have to have more pan-European pop culture.
Yeah, you mentioned Parliament, and I agree with you that it's been successful. I know it frustrates a number of MEPs when I get interviews. I ask them, a French MEP, I ask them, "Oh, have you seen Parliament?" And I would say it's 50-50. 50% say, "Oh yeah, it's great. It shows about the Parliament," and 50% are like, "Yeah, no, that I couldn't stand more than 5 minutes because it's too like caricatural. It's too much," and they felt insulted by the way they portrayed it. But on the other side, whenever I talk about the EU to people in France, or I advertise the interviews I do with MEPs, etc., there will always be someone say, "Oh, by the way, is Parliament like the TV show? Is it like reality?" And it piqued the interest of people, and people want to know more.
It starts a conversation. And I mean, anyone can say, I mean, it's very easy to criticize. It's another thing to do something. And I mean, I worked in the European Parliament, and I had moments of, it's funny because it's true. And there were other times when I thought, well, that might be a bit of a simplistic explanation. But for me, for example, I have an improv show called House of Europe, which is an improvised house of cards. And it's kind of like, what would a EU TV series look like? And in order to get my cast ready, because half the cast is from the bubble, but half the cast has nothing to do with the European Union. So one of them said something about the European community in the first rehearsal. And someone asked if, they asked something about a very old council president. So I got them as homework to watch Parlement. And it helped them get a feel and a flavor for what happens here. And it doesn't matter, I think, that it's not 100% accurate, as long as it gets you through the door. We have discussions all the time in our writers' rooms about sketches we'd like to do, which are just too complicated. Important subjects, very important subjects, but sometimes we shelve something not because we don't have an opinion about it or if we don't think we want to talk about it, but we figure in a 5-minute sketch that is too complicated, and therefore we have to make some judgment calls.
And so, speaking of the choice on the jokes and the fact that it has to be relatable, how do you, let's say, walk the line between a joke that would be, let's just playing the cliche, and a joke that would be too much of a private joke that only people inside the bubble would get? How do you strike the right balance?
I think I am the most outside of the bubble for the team because I've never worked at the institutions, and I try to, as a journalist, being more an investigative journalist, to be not too much reliant on like sources. And so I think and also because my daily job is to explain the EU to normal people, to people. Yeah,
That's how I call them as well. So don't worry.
People outside of Brussels. So I think that is one thing I'm always very strict on. Like, okay, I don't know, I don't think my mother would get this, or and sometimes still we decide to put a joke in, as you just said earlier with your friend that you brought to the show. They don't have to understand 100% because sometimes 95% is enough, and you get the rest, you understand the rest from the context, or you just don't, but it is just funny for the in crowd who's also there. So these are things we weigh all the time.
For example, like I said earlier, I consume a lot of US comedy, especially the late night shows that we're modeling ourselves on. And they make so many references to the sports culture there and baseball games and jokes about teams that lose and all that. And I never know what they mean, but I kind of understand the gist of that is so bad, it's as bad as blah. And with a lot of very niche American cultural things, not sports, maybe it's food or whatever, there's times when you don't know what that is, and then there's times when after a while of hearing the same joke you're like, oh, I know what they mean. So for example, a certain type of train that's always very late or never comes, which I have not experienced because I don't live in New York City, but if you hear that joke enough times, you also are like, oh, okay, I get it, I understand the joke.
And speaking of running gags, do you yourself have decided to have like running gags or favorite things that you like to make fun of in as part of your shows?
The midday briefing.
The midday,
yeah.
The midday briefing always has some. It was a great great invention Paul had to be a spokesperson who's talking to the audience as if they're all journalists and taking questions. There's always things that are topical that have happened in the last month, but there are always the gag about how the EU is very concerned about something that always comes back.
Yeah, I mean, again, there is sometimes reality beats the sketch. I mean, when you look at some of the midday briefings, some midday briefings are just hilarious. I mean, probably you have seen the midday briefing about Hello Kitty, about the frites.
The frites, yeah, of course.
This one, those are classic.
I worked on the briefings for the frites, so I remember.
Oh, did you come up with the line?
No.
Ah, sad.
No, I was working in the DG. I was not working in the spokesperson.
Okay.
But we were laughing about the frites in that's the facility for refugees in Turkey, FRIT. But everyone frites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Skinas made a joke about it. Les frites on adore, or something like that. But my favorite, I think, remains the Hello Kitty one about the DG competition investigating whether Hello Kitty is a conglomerate and in breach of DG Compo. But it's very funny. Look at the video. It's
I'm gonna have to YouTube this after.
They go into the details of the family tree of Hello Kitty. It's very funny. Anyway, I look at the time. We're reaching the end. So let's to finish. Let's look at the future. What would you like to the Schuman Show to become? I mean, it's relatively young. I mean, it's even less than a year. It's been only 4 shows. You've been growing quite nicely. I mean, you already have more than 500 people on your mailing list. A few hundred people every time booking tickets. So where do you see yourself in a few months?
Well, in a few months,
holiday.
Holidays, yeah, okay.
Well, I think we're getting into our groove now of not having to run around and just be exhausted the day after the show, because every waking moment of the last week was spent on the show, and I think that now because we had to find time. We've had our weekly writers' room moved from Monday evenings to Friday middays to Sunday afternoons. So we've also been learning how we can work best together. Like, does it work better if it's on Zoom? Does it work better if it's in person? Is it going to be a mixture of the two? What is a time that's good for everybody? This has been a little bit hit and miss. We've been learning how to organize ourselves in a way that works for everyone as we've been going along. And now we have a little bit of a pattern of, okay, so we know that up until week 3, it's going to be like that. And we all know that we need to book at least, like 3 days of the final week to do this and that and that. So I think that now we're getting to a point where
we have a workflow.
We have checklists. We have started. We have a stage manager and a producer, and we're looking to hire more people. So what we would like for the next few months is that we can separate the creative and the logistics and give everyone a bit more breathing space to do their own their task.
But then for the long run,
what we want is we want to reach people outside of the bubble. We want to reach Europe at large and create that pan-European pop culture. So we want to figure out how to either be in a live studio or get live streamed. Whatever we can afford, whatever people believe in us enough to produce.
We now sometimes make videos, but that costs a lot of work and time and which we all don't have. And so in the end, it would be great if we could lift this whole to another level, so that it's just part of the game.
Yeah, the idea is to get out of the theater and onto a situation where it can be on screen as well.
Because we really want to burst the Brussels bubble in any way.
Yeah, we want to be able to speak to both Brussels and Europe at large. We've started a Patreon, so that's a new thing. If anyone listening is a
millionaire.
You don't have to be a millionaire on Patreon.
You don't.
Commissionary.
But yeah, that's the long-term goal. It's keep doing what we're doing. We took a wonderful sketch course because we all had some experience writing, but we kind of organically and instinctively were coming up with our sketches. And we took some time off in December, January to just take classes and write better sketches, which I feel like in February, our sketches, the quality had changed as well. And that's something we want to do again. We want to take a break in April and do the same thing, like give ourselves a little bit of time to just not worry about producing a show, but look at the content that we're producing and maybe, also get more writers on board. So that's,
right.
That's what
and
we're up to.
Have you been contacted already by media producers or whatever? Do you have the contacts already, or is it like for now hopeful?
If anyone is in media or knows producers or knows people who might be able to help us achieve our dream, please do get in touch. Schumanshow.eu, at Schuman Show on all the socials, including TikTok.
Yeah, you can see that under the video screen, people. Yeah. I put your Twitter. All right. So it's been an hour. It's been very interesting. Thanks again for to both of you for taking the time to speak to us, especially since. And I can sympathize with it running a Twitch show. I know that it can be very time consuming, very exhausting. So I appreciate you taking the time off for that.
Thank you for having us as well. We appreciate it.
Well, I hope to be able to catch your next show or the one after that. But indeed, I really enjoyed it, so I will definitely come back at some point. People in the chat, of course, thank both Kelly and Liz for their time, and do check them out on Twitter, and then you will find the link to their website. When is the next show? 24th of March. So
24th of March.
Tickets are already open.
Tickets are already open on our Twitter, on our Facebook, on schumanshow.eu. Yeah, everywhere.
So if you're in Brussels, do check them out. I put my seal of approval I will not reimburse you if you don't like it, but still, I'm very confident that you will like it. So,
And we won't either because we can't logistically process last minute cancellations. So give your ticket to a friend if you need to.
well, that's clear. So, thank you both of you. I wish you a good evening, chat. I wish you also a good evening because I don't have anything else to ask for the debriefing. So I will stay another minute to do the conclusion and explain what we're going to do next. Kelly and Lisa, I'm not going to keep you any longer. So thanks a lot. Hopefully I will see you at the next show or at another time on the channel. Have a good evening. Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so just going to remind you quickly what we have for the next show. It was, I mean, the interview was very interesting, of course. And again, I cannot recommend them enough, especially if you're in the bubble. It's really really good, and there's a lot of things that are pretty on point. I mean, I'm saying that as someone who's been making jokes for the almost 10 years. Damn. I'm not getting any younger, so there's a lot of things that are indeed. It's funny because it's true, including when they talk about the parliament. I got them to do a joke about MEP assistants. The poor British MEP assistants took a hit there, but that was actually true. After Brexit, they had to beg to get jobs from other MEPs. What was I going to say? Yes, next stream. We don't have an interview this week. We have a conference on the future of Europe stream on Thursday evening at 8. We're going to go through the recommendations of the citizen panels to see what our dear citizens in the Conference of Europe have come up with and if it has ever a chance of seeing the lights. I'm sure they were very creative, and I'm sure that the council will have a lot of fun with the proposal. So we're gonna have a look at that on Thursday at 8. As a reminder, no news review this weekend on Sunday because I'm going on holiday. I'm sorry. So you will have to get your news somewhere else. I will be back the next Sunday. I will probably do something. I don't know if it's going to be a news review, but yeah. That's the program for this week. Thanks again for coming. I wish you all a good evening, and I hope to see you all on, not Sunday, on Thursday. Bye, everyone.